Hi, my name is Ray Mina, and I'm the head of marketing at Freshpaint. At Freshpaint, we help healthcare providers make tools like Google Analytics and ad platforms HIPAA compliant. And my role at Freshpaint is to help create awareness in the market and help educate our customers on pathways forward on how they can take these non-compliant tools and continue to actually promote access to healthcare while keeping their patient privacy in mind. Yeah, so what is tracking technology? So tracking technology is the tools, the pixels that ad platforms and web analytics rely on to collect first-party customer data. First-party customer data is really about the clicks and the actions and the page views that visitors to a hospital's website may go through when they're navigating the site. And why is HHS concerned about these tracking technologies? There's two reasons. The first reason is the tracking technologies feed tools like Google Analytics and Facebook ads that do not sign BAAs and therefore are not HIPAA compliant. The second piece is by default, those pixels and tracking technologies, they capture things that are considered personal identifiers and health information out of the box. And HHS is really concerned about maintaining the rules around HIPAA, which rely on healthcare providers making sure that personal identifiers and health information are not shared with tools that are not compliant. And so this is something that's come to light of many healthcare providers in 2022 and 2023. Yeah, so in December of 2022, there was kind of a thunderclap of guideline changes by HHS around HIPAA. And for the first time, they explicitly called out these tracking technologies. Again, the Facebook pixel, Google's tracking technologies that power its ad platform and Google Analytics. And up until that time, healthcare providers generally assumed that they were really only need to be concerned about logged in users, not really anonymous visitors to their website. And what HHS called out was that these tracking technologies, by default, were intercepting personal identifiers like an IP address, along with health-specific information like a visit to a diabetes treatment page or a visit to a doctor lookup page. And even though that wasn't a logged-in user, you actually have a case of an identifier, an IP address, and specific health information like a doctor lookup page being shared with a downstream tool like Facebook that doesn't have a BAA in place. And therefore you have a violation of HIPAA because you're sharing PHI, which the government is very concerned about protecting for individual consumers. Yeah, so the question of what is a HIPAA violation comes up from almost every single healthcare provider. And it starts with a recipe. The recipe is you need to have a personal identifier, like an IP address. You need to have a specific piece of health information. That could be something as simple as a visit to a treatment-specific page or looking up a specific oncology doctor. And then you need to share that information with a tool that is not compliant. So let's talk about the specifics. So an IP address or a device ID can be reversed to identify a specific user like Ray. And if I visit a doctor page that's looking for someone to help me with maybe some specific type of cancer I've been diagnosed with, and now that combination of information is shared with a tool like Google or Facebook, you have now run out of compliance. The important thing to remember is that just sharing an IP address with no associated health information is not PHI, and just sharing health information without one of HIPAA's 18 identifiers, like can specifically point to me as Ray, is also not PHI. It's the combination of the identifier plus the health information being shared with a non-compliant tool that healthcare providers really need to be on the lookout for. Yeah, so how has this recent guidance impacted healthcare providers? It's been a pretty big change and a huge impact to their growth strategies. Because if you think about it, there's privacy, right? And that's what HIPAA is looking out for, making sure we protect patient privacy. But the mandate for healthcare providers has always been about promoting access to healthcare. And where are consumers today? They're doing searches. They're on social media like Facebook. And so for marketing teams who have now being told from their security and their legal teams to stop using these tools, this is an absolute roadblock to their strategy of promoting that access. So a lot of these marketing teams are left scrambling to figure out how are they going to reach their goals of promoting access to healthcare? How are they going to continue to grow the number of new patients? It's been a real challenge across the board for all major healthcare providers. How are healthcare providers reacting to this new guidance? It's really across the board. We have organizations coming to us where their legal and compliance teams overnight have literally told them to shut it off. Shut off Google Analytics, stop using the ad platforms, all the way to providers who are aware of these changes and are starting to dive into it and navigate that. The biggest impact is obviously for these healthcare providers that rely on Google Analytics to measure their performance and the ad platforms to promote access to healthcare, not being able to use them anymore. Like shutting off $1 million a month spend on an ad platform to reach consumers is not an easy strategic shift, and it's left them scrambling to figure out what the alternatives are. So a lot of questions have come up about how the new regulations are being enforced. And really, I think you have to understand what is HHS's goal. HHS is really interested in protecting patient privacy and working with healthcare providers to find pathways forward. So they're less of an enforcement group and more of a guidance group. However, the FTC has issued several settlements and several fines to healthcare providers ranging up to nearly 10 million, and there are more pending. So the arm of the FTC actually went to Congress recently and asked for an additional $160 million in funding so that they can take on more complex healthcare cases. So they've made a very clear signal that they're going to use all of the power that is available to them to protect consumer and patient privacy. Yeah, so I mean, the question that you should ask is, why don't we just stop using Google Ads and Facebook ads and Google Analytics? And I touched on this earlier. Where are consumers today? Like, we could shift our strategy to the printing press, right? Because we know we'll meet everyone there. No, it's 2023. People rely on social media. People rely on Google search to find treatments, to find healthcare. And so marketers are not the villains here. They're just trying to meet their patients and consumers where they're at. So a healthcare provider that's spending 7 figures a month on ads on these platforms, just abandoning that is going to have a big impact to their main mandate, which is to promote access to healthcare. So that's the real risk. Now, you could switch off of Google Analytics and you could use an alternative analytics platform, but there's huge switching costs. These providers have been using these tools for years. They've built downstream workflows that rely on the data from something like Google Analytics. So this is a year or two of work to even make the shift. And even if you switch off of Google Analytics, what's the alternative ad platform to Google Search and Facebook ads? These are $100 billion ad businesses. They're the 2 biggest ad businesses in the world. It's not an easy strategic shift. So making that change actually puts a big risk to the main goal of how do you promote access to healthcare. Yeah, so what's the path forward? How do you continue to use Google Analytics and the ad platforms? It all comes back to the recipe I talked about earlier, right? What is a HIPAA violation? You have to have PHI, and PHI contains a HIPAA identifier, and it contains health information. So if you think about some of these tools, like Google Analytics, for example, Google Analytics needs health information. What pages did someone visit on the site? Where did they convert? What clicks did they make? But Google Analytics doesn't need identifiers. It doesn't need an IP address or a device ID for it to work well. So you can use a tool like Freshpaint that provides layers of data governance, basically replacing those tracking technologies that put you at risk, and then gives you a tool set to limit the data that can be shared with Google Analytics. In this case, don't share any identifiers with that tool, and you still have a robust web analytics product that can tell you about the performance of your website. Yeah, so Freshpaint is a great way forward for healthcare providers, and we can help make these tools like Google Analytics and ad platforms HIPAA compliant by actually replacing the tracking technology. We think that tools like Google Analytics, which is just a reporting tool, and Facebook ads, for example, they're not the issue. It's the pixels and tracking tech that are sitting on the hospital website, sucking up as much user data as possible. So the first step involves replacing those tracking tools with Freshpaint. And then Freshpaint signs a BAA with every single one of our providers, which makes us safe. And then what we call ourselves is safe by default. What that means is by default, we're not sharing any data with a downstream tool like Facebook ads or Google Analytics. We allow the healthcare provider to choose what data is safe to send to those tools. So as I mentioned before, in the case of Google Analytics, it's safe to send all the web activity. It's not safe to send any of the identifiers. And then finally, we have a server-side connection with those tools. So Google Analytics now has no way to intercept data from the hospital website unless that data comes through Freshpaint first and gets past the blockers and allow lists that the hospital set up to allow what data can be shared. So the other question people have is, what platforms does Freshpaint support? The acute problem that healthcare providers face today, it really revolves around website analytics and ad platforms. So think of all the major ad platforms like Google Ads, Facebook Ads, Microsoft Ads, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn. Freshpaint supports those. And then the web analytics, the main one that almost every single healthcare provider is using is Google Analytics. But Freshpaint doesn't stop there. We're actually a customer data platform that provides data flow to over 100 tools in a tech stack. So other tools that healthcare providers may use would be a data warehouse, a CRM, some kind of engagement tool that would be able to send emails and reminders for upcoming doctor's appointments. So it's not just about the ad platform, it's about reducing the security footprint for the overall tech stack, because Freshpaint can replace all the tracking technology that's on a website with one snippet of code, and then give providers the chance to control that flow of data to every single tool throughout their tech stack. Yeah, so people ask us, what does safe by default mean? What that means is, look, we're a development company and we built this, so other people could build similar solutions. But most of those solutions require you to go into every single event. What's an event? Someone clicks on a website or a page on a website. And along with that event comes a bunch of metadata or properties. That could include the IP address, the device ID, a patient name. It will be up to the healthcare provider to go into every single event and make sure you scrub out any of those identifiers. We take a different approach because we think that's a massive security footprint. With Freshpaint, when you connect to a non-compliant destination like Google Analytics, by default, we're not sending any data. There's no way for PHI to accidentally slip into the hands of Google. Instead, what we do is we allow those healthcare providers, security and legal teams to choose what data is safe to send to that tool downstream. Again, human error happens. The PHI is always in the metadata. By having this out-of-the-box solution that doesn't send any data by default, we're able to keep healthcare providers safe and avoid all those cases of human mistakes.